Hey there, welcome to Safety Update with Sam. I, of course, am Sam. I think we've already established that point. And I want to just thank you guys for watching this video. I've gotten a ton of feedback. I've gotten some really harsh criticism from you know who you are. But other than that, it's been great. You guys have been asking a lot of questions. We've had a lot of topics that I've compiled and that we're going to get to, I promise, if you just hang with me there. Because a lot of you have some really great questions and I don't want to skip over anything. And so we are going to get to them, but I only have a certain amount of time before you guys all start your eyes start rolling back and everything. So I can't get to them in every video, but I promise I will get to all the topics that we have talked about or that you have asked me about. We'll get to them. So hang tight. Some good news though that's been going on. You know that we have been bringing in a lot of new drivers, and with that, a lot of the trucks have been moving. And because of that, obviously with trucks moving on the road, that means more miles have been driven, and we have been seeing some big spikes in miles driven, and it's been absolutely fantastic. You guys and ladies, you drivers, maybe say it that way, have really been pushing the operations team well. And by pushing, I don't mean being like pushy, but you've been really doing a great job of communicating, saying, hey, I'm going to be at the receiver at this time, or hey, I'm going to be empty early, or I'm ahead of schedule, get me something else. It's been really great to see the communication that's been going on. And because of that, we have seen the miles go up, and I'm sure you guys have seen your paychecks going up. And that's exactly what we want. We want to keep moving as many miles as we can. And with that, we need to keep communicating, and you've been doing a great job of doing that. I've been hearing from the driver managers that they can't keep up with you sometimes. Great, I want it to keep going even more. I really want you to put Austin, the load planner over there, to the test. Make him sweat a little bit, okay? Make him really look for those right runs and get you guys the miles, because you guys deserve it. So, but keep it up, okay? Keep communicating, keep letting us know, hey, this is going to be there. Or, you know, I've been getting a lot of calls saying, hey, this trailer's got an issue. Let's get it dropped off. Let's get something else. Great. Fantastic. That communication is so helpful in a company our size. And thank you guys very much for communicating that with us. Moving on. One thing that has been popping up a little bit here from questions, because we are coming into that time. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but we are coming into winter. Okay, and with that comes snow and sleet and ice and all those great fun road conditions that you guys drive on. So I wanted to briefly touch on the adverse driving weather conditions. Okay, so if you don't know, that there is an exemption out there by the FMCSA that if driving conditions are bad and you didn't see it coming, that you can log into your ELDs and you can put in there adverse weather, and that will give you 2 extra hours of drive time. Okay, so if you have to slow down and be safe out there, this allows you to go over the 11 hours by 2 hours and lets you get to a safe spot or lets you get through the bad weather. So, but there are a little, of course, with everything with the FMCSA, there's, you know, little nuances here and there. And before we really get into the bad weather, I wanted to just go over the nuances, and I actually literally printed out the paper from the FMCSA. So this is exactly what they say. Okay, so here we go. It's rule number 395.2, adverse driving weather conditions. Now this is what they identify those as. Okay, adverse driving weather conditions means snow, ice, sleet, fog, or other adverse weather conditions, or unusual road or traffic conditions that were not known or could not reasonably be known to a driver immediately prior to beginning the duty day or immediately before beginning driving after a qualifying rest break or sleeper berth period. So basically what that means is that if you drive into an area that you did not know that there's going to be bad weather in, you can use this adverse driving weather condition or exemption. Okay, so you'd run into a snowstorm, or you run into a heavy fog, or you run into a really bad rainstorm. You couldn't see that coming. The other little interesting thing here is that when they call unusual road or traffic condition, so meaning like if you run into like a mudslide or a rock slide or you know, a sinkhole in the road, that all qualifies for adverse weather driving conditions. Now, I will say this. One thing that a lot of drivers like to try to squeeze in there, but is not defined by this is traffic, okay? Traffic is not in the adverse driving conditions, okay? You should know that if you go into a major metropolitan area, you're going to experience traffic, and the FMCSA and DOT officers will expect that as well. So you cannot get by with saying, I was stuck in traffic in Atlanta. They're not going to accept that, okay? So it's got to be weather conditions, ice, snow, sleet, fog, or, you know, the sinkhole that happens in Oklahoma. It could, you never know. So what are you supposed to do then when you need to do adverse driving conditions? So again, reading directly from the FMCSA handbook here, well, I printed it out, but it's part of a handbook. A driver who encounters adverse driving conditions as defined by what I just said up there and cannot, because of those conditions, safely complete the run without or within the maximum driving time, the 11 hours, may drive and be permitted or required to drive a commercial vehicle for not more than 2 additional hours beyond the maximum allowable hours permitted. So basically, again, what that says is that if you run into adverse driving conditions, you can drive up for an extra 2 hours to get to a safe spot. Now, there's probably a couple questions that come with this, like, are there limits to how many times you can use this exemption? And the answer is no. No, there isn't. As long as you are using it as it is defined, as long as you're running into adverse weather, you can use this exemption every day if you're running into adverse weather every day. Now, chances are you probably won't be, but if you do, there is not a limit. It's not like you only get 3 adverse weather driving condition exemptions per week. You can use them every day if you're actually driving in adverse weather. So another thing is, if it only takes an hour to get through the adverse weather, do I still get an additional 2 hours? No. Okay, you're only allotted up to 2 hours. So if you get through the condition in 45 minutes or whatever, you got to jump back off of the adverse weather driving conditions. Okay, so you're only allowed up to. And then probably, are we required to make notes in the ELDs about this? Yes. Yes, you are supposed to make notes in your ELD. And depending on whether you have Motive or Geotab, it's a little bit different ways on how to do that. And since I don't have really a lot of time to explain that here in this video, I have put a link below in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description section, that'll take you to a link. If you have Motive, it'll show you how to turn the adverse weather on there. If you have Geotab, it'll tell you how to turn the adverse exemption on there. So those links are down in the description. So go check the one that you have, the ELD that you have, and you can follow that, and that'll show you step by step on how to turn the adverse weather exemption on in your ELD. So, but yeah, that's a really good tool to have in your back pocket should you run into adverse weather. And speaking of adverse weather, that brings us to the dash cam film session. All right, here we go. Look at this. We got some rain today. Now, I know the last couple weeks we've seen some things of maybe what not to do, but this week I want to look at something that our driver did well. He navigated this situation well. So let's take a look at the video here. So we're driving heavy rain. You can see we're on an interstate system, but it's raining pretty good. And all of a sudden we see some traffic up ahead, and that traffic is stopped. Okay, like that traffic is stopped in the lane. So the driver made a maneuver, he got over to the left lane and was able to slow down. Luckily, in this situation, the driver had a couple options as far as lanes go. There wasn't anybody to the left or right, and that helped him out big time, because as you can see in the video, he cannot really tell that there's traffic there until he gets pretty close to it because of the heavy rain going. So luckily for our driver in this situation, he was being very attentive in driving. He was constantly monitoring back and forth on the mirrors. Okay, so he's scanning back and forth on the mirrors just to make sure that there is a way out should he need it. And like you see, it pops up pretty quickly that he needs that way out. So I just want to remind you guys and ladies, I keep saying guys, I always mean you drivers, okay? I say guys affectionately. You need to make sure that you're always being defensive while you're behind the wheel, because as you saw here, that the conditions can change pretty quickly. Your road conditions can change pretty quickly. And if this driver wasn't paying attention to his left and his right, and he just wasn't paying attention to the traffic ahead, this could have ended really badly. This could have ended in a really drastic rear end collision, because as you can see, he's doing 65 miles an hour right here. And it's not up until he finally sees it that he's able to slow down, but he's not even able to slow down quick enough. He would have smacked into the back of that black car at probably 30 plus miles an hour. And if he would have had to have slammed on his brakes, which would not have been ideal in this situation, there's a good chance he would have jackknifed the truck and trailer, because with the slippery conditions of the water on the road, it just makes for a very, very scary situation. So always when you're driving, always make sure that you're paying attention to the road around you. Make sure you know what's on your left, make sure you know what's on your right. And I understand, I completely understand, when you're driving on interstate systems, it can get a little boring. And when you get a little bored, that's when you can get a little lazy in checking back and forth and making sure you're aware of your surroundings. But it is so important for you guys to know what is around you, what's behind you, what's in front of you. Do you have anything in your blind spot? Is there any car that's you're following maybe a little too close? You have to always be aware, especially when you're in rainy conditions or snowy conditions or foggy conditions or anything like that. You have to be so aware of what you do, because these cars can stop really quickly, and they do. You've been out there, you know this. Those cars stop really quickly sometimes. And so it's up to you, the professional driver, to make sure you're aware of what they're doing, anticipate their movements so that you can plan accordingly to yours. And kudos to this driver here for making sure his mirrors are clear, always knowing what's around him, and knowing that, hey, if traffic stops in front of me, I have a way out. Okay, and he ended up having to take that way out to avoid a collision, and he did great. He did great in that situation. So good job to that driver. I appreciate him being very aware of his surroundings, and I just highly encourage you all to be aware of yours too. As always, be safe out there, okay? Drive safe. If you have questions about adverse weather driving, contact me. We can go through it a little bit more, but I want you guys to be safe. I want you guys to be successful out there, and anything I can do to help you with that, just please let me know. And until next time, I'll see you. Well, that's a weird way of ending it, but I'll see you next time, okay? All right.